to everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight with us. I think this is important that we all have conversations about awareness and preparation. And so that's really what tonight is all about for you. With the recent tragedy that we all experienced all over the globe, unfortunately, we've had some things that really have brought to us the challenges that we face right now in society, the issues that we deal with individuals who really make some judgments that create some challenges for all of us. So what I want you also to know is that this isn't something that we are just doing because of the recent tragedies. This is something that we continue to do here in the city of Chula Vista. You're going to get an opportunity to hear from Mike Vargo, who is a sergeant in our Special Investigations Unit. I'd also like you to know that Mike has 15 years of experience on the SWAT team, has been responded to active shooter incidents, unfortunately, but has learned a lot of lessons through that experience. What he's going to show you today is some history, is some information about lessons learned, and to help us all prepare and come together. And so in Chula Vista, we realize that there's tragedies and there are some incidents that occur, but what I really appreciate and value about this community is that we all come together to work together to solve some of these issues. Our goal tonight is to give you, whether you're from a business, from a local church or a religious organization, that we give you some foundation and some best practice information to help you better inform your congregations or your employees on what to do in the what-if scenarios. And we hope that we never experience this, but like I said to you, this is really about giving you some tools and some information and some resources and some history on what has happened in some of these incidents that we've experienced here in the United States. And again, I think it's also a time for us to reflect on what we experienced here in San Diego County and Poway with the Chabad, and really to take a moment to pray for those individuals and what they experienced themselves. It's a tough time, but it's also a time, as I mentioned, for us all to come together. So I'm going to turn it over to Sergeant Varga. It's going to be, as I said, some history for you, and then some lessons learned and some best practices to hopefully keep you safe if you ever encounter anything similar. So thank you again for being here. We apologize for parking. The city is going through some construction phases right now, so you may have people coming in and out right now. So again, thank you for being here. And I hope that you also take one of the flyers that they prepared for you.
Great, thank you, Chief. Thank you. Good evening, folks. Good evening. I want to start by thanking you for being here. I really appreciate all of your time. For the next couple hours or so, maybe longer if you so desire, we're going to talk about some very uncomfortable topics. We're going to talk about active shooters, what you can do to survive if you find yourself in an active shooter situation. If you're responsible for security, if you're responsible as an owner of a business, what can you do to make a difference in your business to harden up that target? Now, we have an incredibly diverse group of folks here today. We have some from the religious community, we have some from the business community, we have some average ordinary citizens. Everybody has a different experience. So I want us to all start from a common framework tonight. How many people here have ever heard gunfire in a place where they shouldn't have heard gunfire? Okay. Not talking shooting ranges, not talking military, we're talking about a place where you should not have heard gunfire. There's a handful of folks that have experienced that in here. Okay. I'll tell you right now, it's absolutely disorienting when you don't expect it. So our framework for starting tonight is going to be that moment when that potential active shooter walks into your location. What do you do? How do you respond? What are your options? What can you do to harden up your target, to harden up your business, to ensure that you survive and those that are entrusted to your care survive? I'm going to ask you to do a couple things for me. First, I'm going to ask you to trust me. I'm from the government, I'm here to help. Put your trust in me that no harm will come to you. This is training. Okay? Next thing I'm going to do, in my pocket, I have what looks like a gun. It's not a gun, it just makes noise like a gun. Okay? It's a training tool. I do this for a very specific reason, which I can explain in just a minute. I want you to hear what gunfire sounds like. So if you ever hear that in your office, when you're at a movie, when you're at a restaurant, you're not caught thinking, oh, what was that?
That's good.
Was that a balloon popping? Was that a car backfiring? I want you to instantly recognize that sound and then react. And tonight we're going to talk about what choices you have on reacting. Before we get started, I want you to close your eyes. Remember, trust me. Close your eyes. Take yourself to your place of work. Okay? It's an average midday. Take yourself to your place of work. If you work in an office, visualize your surroundings. Visualize your office, your cubicle, the sounds that you hear. If you're from a congregation or a church, listen to the sounds that you hear of the congregation. Listen to that sound. Listen to that sound. Open your eyes. That is the sound of gunfire. Now I told you what I was going to do, and most of you were still startled. Right? Imagine being caught off guard on a regular day without any warning that that's going to happen. What do you do next? What are your options? That's what we're going to talk about today. Okay? Thank you again for having me here, folks. Again, my name is Mike Varga. I'm with our Special Investigations Unit and our SWAT team. We're going to start with a little bit of history on active shooters, because it's important to know how these things develop, because they've changed over time, and they continue to change over time. If you have any questions, please ask. We're going to have plenty of time for questions and answers later, but if you have a burning question, go ahead and state and throw your hand up and we'll talk about it. I want today to be interactive. That's where I think most of the learning occurs, when we can have those conversations. All right, this is a disclaimer I got to put up. Our attorneys make me say this. We're going to give you our best possible advice today, but despite our best possible advice, bad things might happen. Please don't sue the city. Before I continue, I just want to thank those in law enforcement here, those gun toters that didn't shoot me when I held up my camera. Thank you for overriding your instincts. All right, here's what we're going to talk about today. The takeaways I want from you today are recognizing when an incident's occurring and reacting to that incident. Those are your personal immediate takeaways. Your organizational takeaways are going to be, how do you make your place of employment, your church, safer? Two things we're going to talk about. Okay? So we're on the same page. This is what an active shooter is. This is what the actual government definition of an active shooter is. Main thing that's important for us is these individuals are engaged in killing, and they will continue killing until they're stopped. How they're stopped is very important to every one of us. Because what we're seeing now is more and more they're stopped by citizens just like you. In each and every one of these latest incidents, they were stopped or interfered with by citizens. Okay? Guy on the left there, Whitman, he was probably our first, what we now call an active shooter. Texas Towers back in the 60s. If anybody remembers him. Okay? The guys on the right, I won't even comment. I won't even say their names. But we all know where it happened. It was Columbine. Columbine was a watershed moment for law enforcement. It changed how we did things. Prior to Columbine, law enforcement procedures were to surround the problem, contain it, call for SWAT or a specialized unit to handle it, and let them take care of the problem. Well, it takes SWAT 30, 40 minutes to get there. So in this case, what happened while they were waiting? Yeah, there were shots going off. People were being killed. People were dying. After Columbine, we as a profession took a look and said, what can we do better? What can we change? So for your information now, we don't wait anymore. If it's the first officer that gets on scene, that officer goes in. That officer is now charged with going in and taking care of the threat, eliminating that threat. They get two officers together, fine, they get two officers together. We are in the course of teaching our in-service training right now, and I tell all of our officers, it's going to be an individual decision whether you go in. But if it's my kid at a school and there's shots going off, you can bet I'm going in. You can bet all of our officers are going in. That's what their job is.
Amen.
These are some sad statistics. All right, looking at those are some of the worst mass casualty incidents we've seen over the last few years. Okay, you can probably recognize most of them if I say the word Vegas. Okay, you remember that. A lot of big ones up there. Where can these things happen? Anywhere. Absolutely. Nowadays, they can and they do happen anywhere. They're not just localized to schools or a particular business or a particular church. They can happen anywhere. And we'll get down to some of the causes of why these things happen in just a little bit. All right? I'm not going to go through all of these, but again, you can see the names and you can recognize some of the incidents. All of them are tragic. Sandy Hook, especially tragic. Sometimes I can't, it's a sad commentary, but I can't even update my slides fast enough. That's how quickly these things are happening. Okay, house of worship? Absolutely. Vegas. That was another watershed moment for law enforcement. Another event that caused us to change our tactics. Even though Whitman happened in the 60s, he was a high ground shooter. We didn't, as a profession, do anything about it. Now, after Vegas, we had another high ground shooter shoot into the crowd, we've changed our tactics. Many police departments that have entertainment venues, like we do in our city, we now have counter snipers that we deploy. So we have our SWAT members inside the venue, scanning the hills, scanning the terrain, in the event there is an active shooter out there, or a shooter up on the high ground. We learn, we adapt, but sometimes we're slow in change. That's why we're here talking about tonight what you can do to save yourself. Businesses, yeah, they happen all the time. Too many, too numerous to list. Government facilities, absolutely. Okay? Of course it's happened here in San Diego. Some of you may not even remember some of the incidents. We've had them here in Chula Vista, a couple blocks from here. Congregational Towers, 18 years ago. I remember because I just started. I was just a rookie cop back then. Here's the sad thing that we're seeing. What we're seeing is that what happens overseas, eventually we're going to see on our shores here. The tactics that they use overseas, whether it's shootings or bombings, they're going to happen here. That's what we're seeing. We had New Zealand kick off. We had Sri Lanka kick off. All of a sudden we have incidents now here in the United States. Poway, North Carolina, STEM in Colorado. These things happen in waves. And we'll talk about why, and what the mentality of that is in just a little bit. Okay. Yeah. Extremist activity does inspire stuff that happens here. Here's just a couple examples. People ask, is there a profile of an active shooter? I guess technically there is. It used to be, white guy, late 40s, but now that's changed. Now it could be kids, now it could be anyone. The big takeaway from this is, yes, there's a technical profile of it, and there it is. But in today's environment, anybody can be an active shooter. We've had it as young as 15 years old, 14 years old. We had a couple of girls recently arrested, thankfully. They didn't carry out their plot, but they were middle schoolers. Middle schoolers. Why do these people do this? Why do active shooters do what they do? A whole bunch of different motivations. Okay? The motivations are as varied as the active shooters themselves. It can be political, social, religious. To us, if we're caught in a situation, in that moment, does it really matter? I think I'm going to get mic'd up here.
We're just going to do a quick pause.
Oh. Am I not projecting?
Yeah.
All right. Each pop.
Police officer had a sound guy.
I got technical pause. Those who have to move the place. IED, but
Mike?
Sir.
What just happened? A man with a gun walked down the middle of this aisle, interrupted this meeting without expectation it was going to occur, and nobody moved.
Luckily, he was in uniform. That's probably why. Had he not been in uniform, I think it would have been different. But good point. But good point, because there's sometimes when I teach this class, I'll put a big duffel bag right by those doors. People will step over that duffel bag. I mean, it's big enough to have a rifle in it. And I'll get down to why we do things like that, because we live in a very polite society. We don't want to be the ones to say, whoa, hold on, what are you doing? We hope someone else will do it. We'll talk about that in just a second. All right, talk about motivations, right? To us, when we're caught up in the moment, the motivations don't really matter that much. We have a specific set of options that we can undertake in order to survive. All right? And these are all the different types of active shooters that those that study active shooters have identified. Here's the important thing. These people will continue to kill until somebody interferes with them. That somebody could be law enforcement, or it could be you as a citizen. Does anybody know what happened in Poway?
VP.
The gun got stuck.
He was inside
Yeah.
the foyer, the lobby. We suspect his gun jam. He was looking down at his gun,
The Lord.
and somebody from the audience rushed him, didn't physically tackle him, but yelled at him. That interrupted his thought process enough where he freaked out and exited. And that's when the Border Patrol came and engaged him, and you know the rest of the story. But sometimes that's all it takes, a little bit of intervention. Okay. Again, those who study active shooters, these are the phases that active shooters go through. They all start with some type of a grievance, something that they feel has been done to them, something that they've been wronged by. They then get this ideation, this idea that they want to get retribution or they want to do some type of act, and that grows into research, planning, preparation for the attack. Why is this important? Because at every one of these stages, somebody can observe that behavior and somebody knows something. I don't believe that people just snap. People don't just go crazy. They plan for these things and they prepare for these things. And while they're doing that, those are opportunities for all of us to observe and to intervene and to stop these things before they start. Okay. Here's some more statistics. FBI did a big 13-year-long study. This is where these statistics come from. The ones in red and blue are important. Okay? Again, 77% of active shooters planned or prepared their attacks for at least a week. Some up to half a year. That's planning. Somebody had to know. Somebody did know. They just didn't say anything. This goes into our threat assessment component. 50% of active shooters leaked their intent to commit violence. They told somebody that they were going to do it. They actually told somebody. Almost 90% of juveniles that engaged in active shooting told somebody. Somebody knew. They just didn't say anything. Okay? This is important. We talk about violence prevention. Right? These people, they plan. They conduct activities that precede their violence. These are all stages where we can intervene. Take a look at these next statistics. Okay? These are all of the warning signs. Now, just because one person exhibits one of these, two of these, three of these, does not mean that they're going to be an active shooter. All this is potential indicators, red flags, that maybe there should be some type of intervention. Okay? And those of you that are writing down furiously, I can send you these slides. You don't have to cramp your hands writing these things. I'm more than happy to send you these slides. These are all available from public studies. And I'll also give you a whole bunch of resources at the end of this thing where you can rely on to take a look at some of these studies. Okay? Take a look at one of the ones in red. Okay? You see this in coworkers, congregation members. Again, it doesn't mean that they're going to be active shooters. It just means they're red flags. Something to pay attention to. On average, active shooters that have been studied displayed 5 or more of these warning signs. Taken in combination, that's a pretty good set of statistics. That's a pretty good indicator. How did they communicate these things? Almost 100% of them talk about it. 95% of it did verbally, 86% through their physical actions. 90% of active shooters demonstrated this concerning behavior, all those indicators. 90% of them have those indicators. Right? Who picked up on those indicators? Well, most of the time, if it was a student that was an active shooter, it was their classmates. Friends, spouses, coworkers, they all saw some of those signs. They were all in a position to recognize that. very popular. Social media is very big. And the question is, are we monitoring social media? Yes, on those individuals of concern. Are we monitoring all social media? No. That gets into a whole bunch of privacy issues and privacy rights. But if someone is on our radar because they have made threats, or someone has come to us and said, hey, this individual is of concern to us, then we can go into their publicly accessible social media accounts and take a look to see what they're posting. And oftentimes, that's a really good indicator of where they are mentally and what they may be planning to do.
Why is there any kind of restriction? It's the world can read it.
Right. But when it comes to government monitoring, we just have to tread carefully. Because as the police department, we're considered government. So we don't want to infringe on anyone's rights or overstep. But if someone comes to us and says, hey, we're concerned about this individual, that gives us that criminal predicate where we can then take a look at it and go, someone has come to us reporting in good faith that maybe this individual needs to be looked at, and we're able to look at them. Absolutely. Keyword searches, yes. We do those as part of our investigations. We talked about what kind of behaviors to report. We talked about how many people displayed behavior that other people picked up on. 54% did nothing to report it. They witnessed the behavior, they recognized the behavior, but they didn't report it. Ma'am?
Where would you report this activity?
Law enforcement.
Well,
That would be my number one. Call 911.
call 911
Yeah, and they can direct you. They'll direct you to, for example, if you're in Chula Vista, we'll come to my office. But every department now has some type of a threat management unit. LAPD pioneered it back in the 80s. They created an entire threat management division because they have so many Hollywood stars and stalkers and all that stuff going on in LA. But we've all learned from that. So every department has some type of threat management unit that you can report this to. If it's a school setting, obviously, to administrators. If it's a work setting, to your supervisors, to the owners, to the managers. But don't forget law enforcement. Look at some of those other statistics. Okay? At least 50% reported it to somebody, but just not law enforcement. So we never do. The big thing is where all of us are in a position to see these things, we have to report them. All of us. I'd rather you be wrong, it turns out to be nothing, than to you hesitate and not want to report it. Now, why would we hesitate? Why would we not want to report it?
Too polite.
Nothing. We may take a whole bunch of investigative steps. We may look at his social media. We may see nothing there. We may give him a call. We may go out there and interview him. But if there's nothing there, there's nothing there. There's no charge. There's no record. There's nothing. There's nothing there. So we want to know about them so that we can at least check them out.
I think people may not report because they are fearful of losing relationships, maybe.
That's
of
possible.
That person.
That's possible.
That you
And we're
may
also
think.
a very polite, I'll say it again, we're a very polite society. We don't want to be the ones pointing a finger at somebody just because we don't want to hurt them. Yes, ma'am.
In the Poway shooter, he came from a big family, and he was living at home. Did anybody in his family report anything?
I don't know the specifics of that case in that detail. I would suspect not. I know we posted some stuff online right before the shooting, but then it was too late. But I would suspect, again, I don't know for sure, but I would suspect family probably knew something. Most of the time families do. You know, I want to talk about intuition real quick. Okay. Oftentimes we see these situations, we have the hair stand up in the back of our neck as someone's acting strangely, whether it's Carl 2 cubicles down, that's making some kind of strange statements, or the guy that works down in IT going a little bit crazy. We have these things that we pick up on and we see, but we don't do anything about it. Our intuition is telling us that we should be doing something about it, but we don't. We are the only animal in the animal kingdom that overrides our intuition. Right? Can you ever imagine a gazelle on the Serengeti somewhere, hearing a rustling in the bushes and not doing anything, thinking to himself, it's probably nothing?
Yeah.
We do that all the time, right? We do that all the time. It's probably nothing. I'm here to urge you folks tonight, don't override your intuition. Do you have any of these things? Those are all indicators that something is wrong. Now, us guys, we don't like to admit that we have intuition. We like to call it gut feeling, right? Yeah, I've got this gut feeling. Who's better at intuition, men or women? Oh, by far. By far. Women have been doing it a lot longer. Tonight when I leave here and it's dark, I walk across the street, yeah, I'm aware of my surroundings, but am I really in fear for my safety? Am I really that concerned? Yeah. If I'm a single female and I'm walking in the dark, am I more concerned now? Absolutely. Women are a lot more practiced at intuition. I trust their intuition better than our gut feelings. Don't override your fear, folks. Don't override your intuition. Okay, more statistics for you. They're numbers. Oftentimes we're so inundated with numbers, they become meaningless. But take a look at these next two graphs. Okay. This is the number of active shooter incidents. This FBI study ended in 2013. This line has continued to go up, up, and up. Take a look at this next set. Okay. This is the lethality. The number of people killed in incidents. Increasing. Okay? More shooters, more high-powered weapons. That's why the number of people are being killed. More are being killed. Of course, more incidents. This is it. This is why we're here tonight. Most of these things are over in less than 15 minutes. 10 to 15 minutes is the average. What are you going to do to survive? What options do you have to survive? What can you teach your folks if you're in charge of security? What can you teach your employees? What can you teach your congregation? What options can you give them to survive? That's what we're going to discuss. Okay? It comes down to run, hide, fight. There's a whole bunch of different acronyms for these things. Private companies have created ALICE and all these different ones, but the basics of them are all run, hide, and fight. Now, if you'll bear with me, I'm going to show you a 9-minute video. It's publicly accessible, and I show it to you because if you are a business and you do have employees and you want to train them, I would suggest that this video is shown. It's a great way, a low-cost way to get them on board with the run, hide, fight concept. But I want you to see the video, and if there's any discussions, if you have any questions, I want to discuss that. This is one of those resources for you that's free, it's available out there. You can use it to train your family, your friends, your staff.
That began like any other turned tragic today when an employee opened fire on his supervisor and fellow coworkers.
Students, parents, teachers are asking why today, after a bloody rampage, plunged this campus into tragedy.
Details are just coming in, but we're being told that a heavily armed gunman opened fire this evening at the mall food court behind me. There's no official word on any casualties yet, but one eyewitness reported seeing at least 6 people shot.
Active shooter. A gunman or gunmen killing or attempting to kill people in a confined, populated area.
Nothing more than you see in a TV show. It's all very simulated violence, but I just want to prepare you for that.
You gotta get some sleep. You're looking like a vampire. You sleep.
You ain't got no babies at home keeping you up.
What the hell? Send him again.
We've tried. I'm sorry. We're gonna have to let you go.
Active shooter killings are a tragic, unpredictable reality, and one that's becoming more common.
Since 2006, the U.S. has averaged an active shooter event with 4 or more deaths every 2.9 months.
Even though the number of active shooter events has been increasing, your odds of being involved in one are still very slim. But just like fire drills and earthquake preparedness, making a plan in advance can make all the difference.
Yeah, the lizards have been tamed, so it's probably fine.
If you do find yourself in the middle of a senseless attack, the why doesn't matter.
Hey buddy.
Hang on, something's happening.
What matters is surviving.
On average, 20 mass shootings take place in the U.S. every year.
Killers usually choose their victims at random. They look for easy targets. So the harder you are to see or to hit, the safer you are. When an attack starts, if you can find a way out of the location, do so.
Get out.
If you stay calm and think clearly, even in the middle of a life and death event, you improve your chances of making it out. Visualize your movements in advance.
What are we gonna do?
Look at me. I can get us out. Stay behind me. Stay here.
Use cover, something that will stop a bullet, and concealment, something that at least keeps you out of sight.
Attention South Lane, that's code 3 response needed regarding a 245 DSV 417. So we're at the Town Center shopping mall. Suspect's wearing a face mask, possible body armor.
Use any available means to get out, including emergency exits or windows. Most restaurants and retail locations will also have exits in the back, through kitchens or stock rooms. Even in the best cases, police are minutes, not seconds away. You must take action to protect yourself.
Okay, everybody stay calm. It's probably just a drill. No, go back, go back. Oh my God, oh my God.
If you can help others without putting yourself in unnecessary danger, do so.
What's your name?
Lori.
It's gonna be okay.
If you can't move safely to an exit, get to a room or a confined area you can lock down. Then secure the location.
Secure your location.
Oh my God. There's somebody shooting. Everybody stay calm. Remember how we train. Everybody get in this corner, away from the windows. Get the emergency bag from my desk. Help her.
Drywall won't stop a bullet, but there are steps to take to stay safe. Lock or barricade the doors, turn off the lights, move away from any windows, and silence your cell phone.
The other door doesn't lock. Move desks or anything, just block it.
A modern emergency bag can include a first aid kit, gloves, emergency plans for the building, and casualty cards to alert first responders to any wounded victims.
Most active shooter situations are over in 10 to 15 minutes.
Attention Lakeville units, code 3 is needed, red 245 GSV 417. It's going to be at Alexandria College. Multiple victims down.
Law enforcement's first responsibility when entering an active shooter situation is to stop the suspect, not to render aid to the victims. Medical teams will enter the scene as soon as the suspect is no longer a threat or is confirmed in another location. Silence any cell phones and remain quiet. Do not alert the shooter to your presence.
Sheriff's Department, is there anyone inside?
Red card.
Just hang tight. We'll be back to get you.
Defend yourself.
If you cannot escape the location and you can't shelter in place, you may have to defend yourself as a last resort. Almost anything can be turned into an improvised weapon. Look for something that can disrupt the shooter's ability to see, breathe, or control their weapon. When law enforcement arrives, they are going to be in a heightened state of readiness and awareness, looking for any aggressive movements. So keep your hands visible and follow any commands you are given.
A shooter. I just saw one shooter.
Especially in developing situations, engaging law enforcement, running toward them, reaching for them, even to thank them, could put people at risk.
Surviving an active shooter.
Believe it or not, you are learning an incredible amount tonight. So far you've learned, immediately recognize what gunfire sounds like. And now you have immediate actions that you can take. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where you hear gunshots, this should immediately trigger in your mind. Run, hide, fight. Those are your options. I'm going to cover these real quick. There's going to be a lot of questions, I think, on the fight portion of it. And we're going to be very candid tonight, and we'll answer those questions for you. These are the concepts that I want you to take back to employment. Whoever you're in charge of, whoever the population is that you serve, this is the training that I want you to pass on to them. These are their options. If they find themselves in an active shooter situation, they hear those shots, this triggers in your mind immediately. Run, hide, fight. And run. Obviously, pretty self-explanatory, right? If you can remove yourself from the situation, if you can get away, go. Leave your personal belongings, leave your stuff. If there is somebody there that doesn't want to go, try to coax them, but don't spend too much time. This is your life we're talking about saving. This is you we're talking about. Do what you have to do to save yourself. Help those who you can help, but save yourself. Okay, hide. As we're going through these, think of your place of work. Think of your place of worship. If you had to run, where are the exit doors? How do you get out? If you had to hide, where can you hide? Where can you secure yourself? What can you block the doors with if you need to? We had an active shooter incident at Balboa Naval a couple years ago. It just happened to be one of our SWAT training days, so we all jumped in the Bearcat and got up there within a matter of minutes and rushed out of traffic. But they had a great program going. They had already taught their entire campus. For those of you that know Balboa Naval, it's a huge campus. Multiple, multi-story buildings. They had taught everybody there the run, hide, fight concept. By the time we got there, they had a PA system announcing active shooter, run, hide, fight. To trigger that memory of what they had taught. And that looped over and over and over again. And boy, did it work. As we went through those buildings, trying to clear those rooms, we found barricade after barricade after barricade. Entire wards were barricaded with x-ray machines, filing cabinets, desks, chairs. We could even see inside. Because they did exactly what we asked them to. They barricaded. If they couldn't run away, they couldn't leave their patients. They couldn't leave. We did what did we do? The children's ward, right? We did the pediatric ward, sick kids. They couldn't leave those kids there. We did the surgical unit. Somebody on the table, they couldn't leave them. They couldn't just leave them and run. They barricaded. They did exactly what we asked them to. And it worked out. Nowadays, we all carry cell phones, right? Please remember to silence those things. Like they showed in the video, last thing you want to do is be hiding and all of a sudden your phone goes off. Are you okay? Well, that was. All right. This is the tricky one. Fight. What if you can't run? No place to run to. Why? What if you can't hide? What if fight's the only option you have left? What are you prepared to do to save your own life? What are you prepared to do to save the life of a loved one? What will you do to go home to your family that night? To see your kids another time? How far are you prepared to go? And I'll tell you this, all the way. You do whatever it is you have to do to survive. This is your life we're talking about. When you fight, you fight. You commit to those actions. I've heard it said, oh, but I could never do that. I could never punch him in the throat. I could never gouge him in the eye. You just need the proper motivation. This is your life we're talking about. This is something that's trying to kill you. Decide now what you're prepared to do. Now is the time to decide. Now is the time to make those personal plans. Not guns start ringing, right? Now's the time to do it. If you can do it by yourself, great. If you can get co-workers to attack at the same time, absolutely. Fight with everything. Be aggressive. Be more aggressive than you've ever been. It's your life you're fighting for. Okay, it's not contact sport. It's your life. Use whatever's at your disposal. Knives, pens, letter openers, bottles, search.
On that point, somebody takes courses to arm themselves and be certified. How do the police feel about that?
So, a couple different things here, and I'll speak in generalities. So it's up to your employer whether or not they permit guns on the campus in their work environment. It's up to your house of worship if you decide to let those properly licensed carry guns. Now, there's a whole bunch of hazards that come with that. If you're an armed person, how confident are you? How much do you train with that weapon? Are you comfortable taking that shot in a chaotic environment? All things to consider. Do you know everybody else that's armed? Whether it's in that large congregation or that building. The last thing you want is what we in law enforcement call a blue-on-blue situation, where you have two friendlies shooting at each other because they don't know who they are. So you may be armed, you see a bad guy, but you don't know about Roy in the corner who's also armed. Now he thinks you're the bad guy. Just things to consider. I'm just throwing out considerations out there. In the right hands, it can be an effective tool. Absolutely. Sir. So the question is, he feels very vulnerable in this room. It's a very open auditorium, open setting. What would you do? What are your options? So you go through it real quick, mental checklist. Run, hide, fight. Can you run? No place. That's right. Where do you run to? Can you hide? No place to run. Can you make it to one of the exits?
Should have checked that before you sat down.
Well, see, that's it right there. See, us cops, they call us paranoid. We kind of are paranoid, right? When we go out to restaurants, we always sit with our back against the, facing the door. We don't want to be the last person, and we're always scanning and looking around. But it becomes habit to us. So we go in, that's right. So we walk into a room like this. This is what I want you to do. I don't want you to live paranoid. I just want you to be a little bit more aware of the environment. So when you come in here, you think, look, you scan around. Okay, exit sign right there. I know if I go through those double doors, that'll take me out to the street. Back here, well, it looks like there's some kind of a cover back here. I could probably use something like this as cover. Just quick, a couple seconds. Just a couple mental notes. So in case something does happen. Yeah, I mean, you have to deal with your environment. You're not always going to have a weapon. You may have your hands, you may have your book, you may have to band together. There are no simple answers. That's why this is so hard. But you have to use what's in your environment. Run, hide, fight. That should be triggered automatically when you find yourself in those situations. What to do now if you get away? Yes, call 911 if you can call 911. Don't worry about all these things. The dispatcher will guide you through it. They'll ask you questions. Oftentimes in these high-stress situations, law enforcement gets a lot of erroneous information. The shooter was 5 foot tall. No, he was 6 feet tall. No, he was 8 feet tall. It was red, yellow, white, blue, all sorts of different things. So if you can be a good witness, be a good witness. But make sure you're at a place of safety. Okay. What to do when we come on scene. You've seen the pictures now, unfortunately, they've become all too common. People running out of the buildings with their hands up. That's what we ask you to do. In the academy, we're taught, watch the hands. Always watch the hands. It's the hands that are gonna hurt you, it's the hands that are gonna kill you. So if we can see your hands, we at least know that you're not armed. Most of the times, these active shooters will either kill themselves or surrender. But lately, we started seeing a trend. Parkland, where he walked out with the students. It was only later captured. So we never know who's coming out. We don't know who's friendly and who's foe. So we ask that you just keep your hands visible and just follow our directions. We'll probably be amped up just as much as you are when we're going into an active shooter situation. And another thing, if there's wounded and that active shooter is still loose, we're not gonna be able to stop to help the wounded. So that's not gonna be our primary job. We have to stop the killing. So we have to go after that active shooter first. And then we can come back and tend to the wounded. Now in Chula Vista and some other progressive cities, we started training with fire. So fire will now come in with us on these hot calls. So no longer will they stay and wait till the scene is completely secure. They will come in with us to start treating the wounded to help save lives. In our area, who's going to respond to an active shooter? Everybody. All sorts of cats and dogs and everybody else is going to come. We have so much law enforcement in Chula Vista, it's incredible. You may not even know it. On any given day, you have Border Patrol out there, DHS, FBI, everybody's out there. And so when we respond, you may see your traditional officers in uniform, you may see guys in tactical uniform, you may see guys with nothing but a police vest on. But they're all responding, they're all there to help. And they're all trained to a certain level here in San Diego County. We call it our active shooter training, our MACTAC responses. That's what we train. So everybody in the county is trained how to respond to these things. And again, like we talked about, they go in, even if it's one officer, they go in. Their job is to stop the threat, to stop the killing. We no longer surround and wait. We go to the sound of that active shooter. We go to stop the threat. Yes, sir.
Is the San Diego Sheriff Department well trained too?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. We all train on the same tactics. Question was the San Diego Sheriff's trained the same way? Absolutely. Okay. Just think about this for a second, right? Have you thought about this? You're here because you're interested in it's hit home. Have you thought about it? You need to start with making your own plan. We're going to get into now institutional plans in just a second. You need to start by making your own plan. What would you do if you're caught up in it? Just like we talked about. Where are your exits? Where can you shelter? What can you fight with if you need to fight? And practice these things. Even if it's just a mental drill, practice it. It's only gonna take 5 minutes. If something happens, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna walk the route that I would run. I'm gonna go check that door to see if it locks to that closet. If I need to shelter in there, can I shelter in there? You need to survive those critical first 10 to 15 minutes before we get there. After that, your chances of survival increase exponentially. Have your own personal active shooter plan. The stuff we just talked about. Where can you run? Where can you hide? Where can you use a weapon? Where can you barricade? If you have willing coworkers, if you have willing congregation members, practice with them. Get them involved in it. Talk to your employer. Talk to the powers that be about having a plan. At a minimum, have your own plan. And practice that plan. Does your company, does your church, does your organization have a threat management policy? All those things that we talked about, all those warning signs, all those indicators. If someone comes to you and you're the boss and say, hey, I'm worried about George because this, and this, what do? What's your policy? Who do you talk to? Who do you report to? Do you have anything written? Have you thought about those things? Do you have an active shooter plan that spells out where your congregation members, where your employees, where they should meet, where they should go, where they should rally up at? Let's talk about institutional plans. What types of things should you consider? And at the end of this, we'll give you guys some resources from FBI and DHS. There's actually templates available online that you can fill out, and they'll walk you through creating an emergency action plan, creating an emergency active shooter plan, give you all the categories to fill out. All all the stuff that we talked about tonight, and more. Train your folks on some of those things that we talked about, on those red flags, on those things of concern. Empower them, let them know that it's okay to report it. Don't feel bad about reporting it. Give them permission. Hey, come to me. If there's somebody that you're worried about, it's okay, tell me about it. No one's gonna hold it against you. We'd rather know than not know. I would rather that you report it, we check it out as nothing, than the opposite. Folks, you should consider involving as you're creating an emergency action plan. All right, let's take a listen to these components of the plan. What goes into some of these plans? Access control, obviously a key one, right? Many churches still have an open door policy. They leave a lot of their doors open. Is it time to rethink that? Maybe many of you have already rethought that. Okay? Use of guards. Armed guards versus not armed guards. Always a cost, right? Cost benefit analysis. Things to consider, right? How do you notify, if you're an employer, a large employer, you have multiple buildings or multiple stories, how are you gonna notify your employees that something's going on? How are they gonna know that there's a shooting on the first floor if they work on the third floor? You have a PA system. You have a reverse 911 system. What do you have in place that will let your people know, hey, we have an emergency, we have an active shooter, we need to take action right now. Just like Balboa and Naval have that run, hide, fight looping on their system. What do you have in place? Use cameras, intrusion detection systems. What do you use? What are your security measures? And once we get into the question and answer portion of this thing, I can kind of help address some of the specifics. These are just some of the general categories that you want to consider. What are your escape routes? Primary escape routes, secondary escape routes, rally points. How do you have accountability for your folks? How do you know who's missing? Where are they gonna go? How are you gonna contact them? How do you contact upper management? What plans do you have after the event for recovery? And again, what you train your folks on. Big one, the big ones. The signs, the red flags. I know all these active shooters, somebody knew about them. Somebody knew. Somebody was in a position to observe. They just didn't say anything. We as a society need to get past that. We need to start reporting these individuals of concern. Here's something a lot of people struggle with, is challenging people that they don't recognize in their place of work. We at our PD, we have a lockdown facility. You'd be surprised how many people still come in. Whether it's members of the community, follow somebody in a careless left door open, or it's contractors, or it's vendors. I watch officers walk by people all the time. They don't challenge them. We're all supposed to wear a badge and ID out. Many of us don't. We have undercover officers that work in the building. They don't wear anything. But nobody challenges them. Ask them, hey, how you doing? Can I help you with something? What are you doing here? Many of these guys, they test security. In their planning and their preparation, they will visit the site that they are planning to attack. And they will test their security. How far can they go in? How far can they penetrate? How can they get over this barrier? Can they just follow somebody in? What are your access control measures? Empower your people. Let them know it's okay to challenge somebody. Hey, sir, can I help you? You're looking for somebody? What can I do for you? Something as simple as that. You throw them off their game. Reacting to sound of gunfire. We had an orientation to that tonight. Shots go off. What do you think immediately? What are your options? Let I fight. Oh, I make it happen. Adopting a survival mindset. Yes, it's your life. What are you gonna do to survive? Everything. Everything possible what you're gonna do. That means injuring or hurting the active shooter? Yeah. That's all in the cards. You're gonna do everything you possibly can to survive. That's that survival mindset that you have to have. And plan for whatever population it is that you serve. Sometimes there's special needs, elderly, very young. Whatever population you serve in your work, plan for that specific population and how you're going to address whatever specific needs that they may have. Okay. That's kind of what the template looks like. Those are just categories. out to you. It's all online, DHS.gov, Department of Homeland Security. So what the government uses, those are the templates that you can fill out that'll walk you through how to create a security plan. And of course, we're always there for you as a resource at the police department. We can't respond to every request, but general requests we can do. If you've done site surveys for some folks, we can come out and do a site survey for you, or help you with the process at least. Plan, plan. Even if it's your own personal plan, have a plan. Any plan is better than no plan. Give it to your coworkers, create a plan. Have your employer put in a larger plan. No plan is not good. You need some type of a plan. Okay? Run, hide, fight. Teach it. Teach it to the folks. People ask me, well, should I teach my kids? I have a 13-year-old daughter. I've discussed it with her. Some people might feel it's a little too traumatizing. I'm willing to take that risk if it saves their life. It's up to you. If you have kids and you want to discuss this with them, should you teach them run, hide, fight? They're teaching in some of the schools. It's an individual parenting decision. But I'm a believer in it. I'm a believer in knowing your options and planning ahead of time and having some game plan. Those are your two big resources right there. FBI and DHS. We have volumes on active shooters available to the public. You want to read up more on it, if you have questions, please visit those sites. You can always call us.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
That daughter special that you have, she will be less traumatized if she knows what can come and what's happening than if she has to go through it without ever knowing it could get that bad.
And I agree with that statement 100% certain. That's why I do it. Folks, what I want to do now is turn it over to kind of public comment, discussion, questions and answers. This is where I find that we often have the most value. Ray, I'll start with you in the back.
I just want to bring everybody's attention that the city of Chula Vista have become pioneers in the entire nation in forming partnerships with private facilities, places of worship. They've worked tirelessly with me particularly, to develop the systems that have been accepted countywide. It's first developed for hospitals. We have hospitals covered throughout the county. We've expanded to schools K through 12, and we're now doing a lot of places of worship. But it was all possible because Chula Vista PD, Chula Vista Fire, opened up their doors, and we got together and say, how can you help us and how can we help you folks? And now it's become a standard in the country. So, if anything, I really want to give like I said, a round of applause because, like I said, City of Chula Vista, Police and Fire Department become pioneers in a system that's been accepted countywide. And that's hard for me to say because I'm a retired Senator PD SWAT officer. So, round of applause. About the system, I'll be outside. I just want to say thank you because, like I said, they've become pioneers, and every law enforcement agency in the county, state, federal, local, and every fire department in the county has looked to Chula Vista PD and Fire for supporting this program.
Well, thank you. Please hit up Ray if you have questions. He's developed a system that hospital use and now it's moving into houses of worship. It's a system that enables first responders to gain access to your facility quickly. It has maps, it has keys. It allows us to move inside a facility even if you're not there, so we can get access to the whole facility. Ray's the director of one of our large hospitals here, director of security. Please hit him up with questions on that. Okay. Ma'am, you got a question in the back?
Yeah, today at work we had an active shooter exercise, and my boss and I went off to do that shot. But this video is without a doubt the most potent video that I have seen. I work for the government, and so I'd like to get a copy of it if I could.
Absolutely. It's available online through YouTube. You can just Google Los Angeles County Sheriff active shooter video, and that's what's going to come up. It's available to everybody online, and that's why I play it during these forums. It's something that you can take back to your family. You can take back to your employers, employees, your houses of worship, and if you so choose, share that with your congregation members.
Well, I was thinking that if we could get a video that we could show in a conference room with our people.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, absolutely. I can get you a copy of it. I can I can't email it to you, but I can put it on a thumb drive for you, and that way.
We can't do thumb drives anymore.
If you can access the internet, you can YouTube it, that's probably the easiest way to do it.
Government computer. Yeah, government computer.
I know there's not an answer for everything, but I'm a what-if guy.
I'll try.
Okay? For small houses of worship with zero budget for security, not just a chaplain, I'm also the safety guy there. And I work for elite security, so I know all that stuff up there. I say, okay, I know that, but I work for a church that doesn't have a budget that's for locking the doors. My pastor goes, no, not gonna happen. Okay, so all I emphasize at my church is, and I'm a parking lot person too, is parking lot is the first line of security because you see everybody and you know most people. Beyond that, once someone gets in the doors,
You're in a tough spot. And what I would encourage you to do is have this honest discussion with your pastor. And you're going to have to sit down and do a risk analysis benefit. Are you willing to take the risk that by not locking that door, it won't be your turn this Sunday? It won't be your house of worship's turn this Sunday. Can you post volunteers at the door?
Yep.
It's an option. Right? You have people in the parking lot as volunteers, extra set of eyes, but then you have to have a communications plan. So if they see something in the parking lot, who do they communicate to?
Radio.
Is there somebody in charge of security that would then be able to call resources? Or do you empower them to call 911? So different lines of security, concentric circles of security, but you're dealing with a tough thing.
it's collaboration is the toughest thing.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I'm here serving the house of worship, and you kind of take away the hide inside of it. Yeah, we have a school, you could hide in there. But in the sanctuary, like open room like this, you take away hide, right? So you get it right into run and fight.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And then
Those are your only
going
two
with
options.
our elderly, right? We have elderly and we strategically put them in the back just in case something were to happen. I've heard leave elderly alone. Like I heard just leave them alone. Like I thought get the walkers, get the wheelchairs, get them out. I heard in a situation like that, you just get the animal out.
I'm not gonna leave my mom behind.
Right.
Well, these are
Our hearts
very
do
much
play.
individual decisions, right? Depends upon where the threat is, how close the threat is, how much time do you have, is there active shooting going on? Are you gonna confront that shooter? If you mask, if you have 5 people, get to that door and take out that active shooter, are you gonna do it? Yeah. Right? And it's happened. It happened in Poway, it happened in North Carolina, and it happened in Colorado.
The Poway rabbi did a phenomenal thing. He invited the mayor's congregation out before patrol. The best guy you ask for in law enforcement are the most trained people that we can trust. Your congregation. He went law enforcement, conceal and carry. That's the best.
So you have to be careful, as we talked about. Make sure if you're gonna use off-duty law enforcement officers, that they all know who's on inside that building.
Blue on blue.
Because the last thing you want is that blue on blue situation. The last thing you want is them to confuse each other for active shooters. That has to be a very coordinated effort. What I tell my guys that work in plain clothes, if you're gonna intercede, if you're gonna interject yourself in a situation, make sure you're clearly marked. So they all carry around these police vests, security vests, something that they can throw on to immediately identify them, if you're gonna go down that route.
So for local churches, it's on the action plan there is to work with local law enforcement.
Yes.
For practicing. Who specifically that Chula Vista PD do I need to talk to in order to set that up?
Mike Varga, I'll give you my phone number. Okay, hold on to my phone number. It's Mike, V-A-R-G-A. My desk line is 619-691-5059. 5059. And we can discuss different options. I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
Is any level of legal enforcement try to see if there's an unusual pattern of legal purchase of unusual weapons or ammunition?
So we are prohibited from monitoring legal purchases. So we don't have a system on our local side. Now, the federal government does monitor purchases, individual purchasers, and where they buy from. Because oftentimes what they have are straw buyers. They'll buy a gun and they'll pass it on to someone else. So there are some systems in place. They're not perfect, and unfortunately sometimes they slip through. But there are more and more of these monitoring programs going into place. But it's a tricky situation because we don't want to trample on like the Second Amendment rights. So we're always playing that balancing game of how much can we investigate versus how much do we have full flights. Go here and I'll go back there.
Sir, this question is probably pertaining to the chief. We, as I've noticed, most of the incident at least last for 15 minutes. The response time of the police department from here going to east would be more than that. Is there a plan where the city is going to provide us with a branch precinct on that side?
Well, I'll touch on that real quick, and not to say anything bad about our friends in fire, but we have patrol units spread out throughout the city with a specific plan. So all of our resources are not just on the west side of the city. We have resources on the south side, north side, all throughout the east side. So we have what are called beats, police beats, and we staff each of those beats with X number of police cars. And those cars are there. And if for some reason one sector gets depleted, we backfill with additional resources. So there's always somebody out east. Our priority one, an active shooter, would be a priority one call. What is our current timeline for a priority one?
6 minutes. So right now, we're responding right now, I believe the last time that I checked it, 6 minutes and 19 seconds. But I can tell you right now, an active shooter, everyone stops what's happening in the city of Chula Vista, and every officer responds to that location. So I have no doubt in my mind that the response time will be phenomenal to respond to assist our community.
We're fortunate that we live in an urban area where it would not just be our department responding, but every other allied agency would respond. We have countywide protocols in place. If an active shooter situation goes off, it's not just our department that gets notified, it's everybody in the county, and you'll see everybody responding. Let me go back here real quick, and then I'll come back here.
So I have officers with me on Saturday at synagogue, and I won't be able to run our time, so I'm gonna have to collect them. What advice do you have for me?
So the question is, he has toddlers with him at the synagogue. He won't be able to run. Can you ahead of time identify places where you can shelter in place and barricade?
No, they're in front, they're away from me.
Oh, they're away from you. Okay. So who are they with? Is the question.
Teenagers.
So then maybe they need to be trained on what to do. These very run, hide, fight things, and how to shelter, and where to shelter. Identify those places ahead of time, and if there's some type of notification system, which gets back to, how are you gonna notify the occupants of your location that something bad is happening? Once you get that notification system in place, and those teenagers or those responsible for their safety, they hear that, their next step should be shelter, barricade, and stay there, if they can't run. And
What are we doing, like, to figure out the signs of people that are, gonna do this? Or there's warning signs, I know that it don't just, and they're mostly young kids.
well, I agree with you that.
There has to be consequences, something, done.
And people don't just snap. We had a couple pages on the slides of warning signs. Just because you display or exhibit 1, 2, or 3 of those signs doesn't mean you're gonna be an active shooter, but they're red flags. And that's why we're talking about when you see those signs, you should let us know. Let us take a look, let us question, let us investigate to make sure that there's nothing more. And if there is something there, then we can intervene.
And I know a lot of these parents have to know their kids
That's right.
from, they're in denial, or, I know.
Well, we
it's
have to
hard.
change that culture. We have to change that culture where we're hesitant to report these things. More people know. Absolutely. That's more questions here? So these
As far as informing people that there's an active shooter there, it says on the slide that don't put firearm on. But you did say in some of the facilities in the neighborhoods where they had it cycling through.
Correct.
So what is the way, the preferred method of telling people in a different building?
So I really like the public announcement system method, and that's what the hospital used. It was actually a recording that came out through their public announcement system, and it said, active shooter, run, hide, fight. And that just kept moving.
I mean, the fire alarm system in our church does say fire, evacuate.
So
But
I would
really have that system nowadays that you can have a different.
Yeah, I would caution against the fire alarm system, especially when you're in a big building. Because what do most of us do when we hear a fire alarm? If it's drilled, then we ignore it. And we have certain patterns that we're told to evacuate to. How do you know that the active shooter is not in that close of travel? What I would rather have is that you have some type of a system that announces active shooter and then says run, hide, fight. That refreshes in everyone's memory what their options are.
But the U.S. the fire alarm can be programmed.
I can't speak to the specific types of alarm that you have. I know there are systems that do exist like that.
There are systems out there, but I would strongly suggest plain language. Hospitals are notorious for having secret code. So that would cause some kind of secret code about an active shooter that nobody knows about, but the people who work there is right around the corner. And people running out the building have no clue what's going on. So if you're going to put in a universal message, make it plain English. Don't come up with secret code.
Parkland pulled the alarms, didn't he? Didn't the shooter pull the alarms for parking?
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
So-
And what that caused is people to flood out, gave them more targets.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened in Fargo. I had some more hands up. I'll go with you, sir, and then I'll come right back here.
Sergeant Barnes, can I comment how we modified it at my church?
Absolutely.
We know that if an active shooter gets in our very packed sanctuary, that he can do a lot of damage real quick. And we have said, throw your cell phones at him, throw the Bible of him, at him to get the men folk up and get to him in unison as a group as quick as possible. Not that you gotta kill him, but get that weapon away from him. And that is how we've decided to handle it, and we remind each other, encourage each other about that same facet of it.
What I compliment you for is having that plan ahead of time. You've thought about it, you've got a reasoned, rationed approach to it.
And
We
we're
have very
always
limited
reminded
options.
them big mean dudes, be ready.
You're the big guy, you're going first. Yeah.
Yes, so you work for, say, an individual works for an employer, and you have indications. We all know that it's very difficult for people at work sometimes to remain quiet. Can you, as an individual employee, contact the police and remain anonymous?
Absolutely.
And don't have retaliation?
Absolutely. We get those calls all the time. Hey, I would like to remain anonymous. These are my concerns. This is who I'm concerned about. This is the information I have. We take that information and then we investigate. More times than not, it turns out to be a lower level threat, but there have been several incidences where off an anonymous tip like that, we've most likely stopped something. We've taken high-powered weapons away from an individual that was 5150s in our terminology, that he had been institutionalized prior for making threats. He was probably on that path towards violence. He was probably gonna do something bad. Had that person not called us, we're added to the active shooter. Yeah.
How do you get guns?
Most of the people, they own guns already, prior to criminal behavior. Second most popular, they buy them legally. Third, they steal them from someone that has them, or they borrow them from someone that has them. So all sorts of different ways that they get guns. Sir?
Last choice for me is to fight as an ordinary citizen. If I kill the shooter, what's my consequence?
If you're doing it in defense of life, yours or others, you'll be okay. It's justifiable.
That's covered under the Good Samaritan.
That's not just Good Samaritan, but it's justifiable because you did it in defense of your life or others. And you do what you have to do. We say stop the threat, right? You do what you have to do to stop the threat. Okay, thanks.
Thank you for all the information. I love it. I'm a mother of two little ones. My oldest one's 3 years old. For me, it's a super important topic to talk about them and like for them to react in school, wherever they are. But I haven't found the resources to teach. I don't care to teach them and have them understand a little bit of it. Where do you find the resources for that young age?
They don't exist. Well, I shouldn't say they don't exist.
Because how do you
But
keep
most-
them quiet and, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very difficult, and that's up to the teachers, because they look to those teachers in school at 3 years old, right? It's very difficult, so they're gonna take their cues off of that adult in that room. Most schools now are providing training, they call it lockdown training. They're not using the terminology active shooter training, but they are using the lockdown, which is the lockdown procedures, how to remain silent, how to shelter their desk. When we grew up, most of us had earthquake drills or fire drills.
That's it.
Now it's a sad commentary on our society that we have to have active shooter drills.
Yeah.
But we do. There are some resources on the FBI's website, specific to kids, and that'll kind of help guide you through, give you a little bit of guidance on how to do it.
Because in
But
school
really,
they might teach them, but what if I'm in the supermarket?
it's
You know,
gonna be a
and
difficult,
I'm with them.
Absolutely. It'll be a difficult conversation that you're gonna have with your kids, and you have to practice it. You're gonna have to practice those drills with them, because that's the only way you're gonna embed it into those little ones' minds of what to do. I know cops that do it, that work undercover, and they have these certain code words when they're out with their family. If we see this guy and I say this word, you were to take your mom's hand and just walk away from me, okay? You may have to build something like that. That if I say this, or if I do this, this is how you're gonna react, and you're gonna have to practice with them. Sir?
Yeah, so far we've been pretty lucky because most of the shooters that are encountered in schools and stuff weren't trained professionals. Not like the shooter in Dallas, that he was ex-military, all those police officers. So that's where we've been lucky so far. Sooner or later we're gonna get a 5150 that's the next military, special ops, and a lot of people.
I don't say this lightly because I'm former military, but we have a lot of military that have come back from seeing a lot of awful things in our region, and some of them are not getting the mental health that they need. So is that a very real possibility occurring? Yes, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely. We had a case a couple of years ago of a former Navy SEAL, and I can talk about it because he's now deceased, but he was a big active shooter threat here in our region. He actually planted small explosives for his locations that went off, and he just never got the mental health that he needed. He eventually ended up committing suicide. But there's a lot of folks out there like that, military or not, that need mental health. And this is where, again, I go back to some of the family that knows this, that sees this, but that doesn't report it. They know when their loved ones are off the meds. They know what they're capable of, but sometimes they just throw their hands up when they're done with them. Because they get frustrated, they don't want to deal with them. That's when we see these cycles. They take their medicine and they feel good. I feel good, I don't need to take my meds anymore. And so starts the cycle all over again.
Suicide prevention. So actually talk to the patient.
Yes.
That's scary, but in the case of the potential active shooter, you think the area in the planning stage somewhere was accelerated?
So the
or would it make no difference?
question is different ways of handling intervention when it comes to an active shooter. Depends upon what stage they're in. Depends upon what information we get. We've done very calm, very chilling interviews with somebody. We have, with our police officers, we have what's called PERT, Psychiatric Emergency Response Team members. They are specifically trained nurses in psychiatric emergencies. They ride along with our police officers and they go to these calls where we have individuals that have mental health concerns. They have the power, along with our officers, to commit these individuals. If we go and we interview somebody that's an active shooter threat, and they're making statements that cause us concern, or we believe that they will harm either themselves or somebody else, we can commit them. We can commit them in a facility for X amount of hours. Usually that increases with some follow-up work. But there's a whole bunch of tools that are available to us, from immediate arrest to a longer case management plan. Sir?
Chula Vista Police Department has a drone program. Do you guys have a setup for that when you use that drone?
Actually, we do, which is, I'm glad you bring that up.
Pretty impressive.
Because we have, we're probably, I think we are the first in the nation where we've pioneered the drone as a first responder. So if we get a call, potential active shooter, that drone can fly across and cover a lot more ground than our fastest officer can. That drone can be on scene and on target, providing us real-time intelligence almost immediately.
If I could just clarify, Mike, so it's, right now we're responding within our test pilot area, which is here around the police department, and our average response time is 114 seconds. And so our goal down the road, you have to understand this is an unfunded program that we're doing, and we're piloting it, and we're the only department in the United States that received FAA certification to utilize our drones beyond visual line of sight. So we're pretty excited about what we're doing. We believe it's a game changer for law enforcement. Our rules and regulations to pilot drones are far more restricted than they are for the average person out in the community. So we're hopeful that through this, we'll be able to change this, and our goal is at some point down the road, if we can find money, we're trying to do that. If you can tell me how to get some, let me know. But our hope is that we can deploy them, and like on average, we have fire departments that cover the entire city. So I believe it's 10 fire departments that we have down the road. The goal would be to say, for instance, an example is fly drones from our fire departments, and then we would be able to respond to any location in the city of Chula Vista within 2 minutes. So that's our goal. Whether we get there, we don't know, but we're hopeful and optimistic. And we do believe it's a game changer because every officer carries a cell phone in their possession, a department-issued cell phone that feeds them real-time information so that they can make better tactical decisions and better decisions for their avenue of approach. For instance, you know, law enforcement is highly criticized for how we respond to certain calls. People kind of oftentimes think we have a crystal ball and that we know whether the person has a weapon. It might be a pencil in their hand, it might be a knife in their hand, it might be a cell phone in their hand, it might be a weapon in their hand. With these drones, we can see up to, Lieutenant Kelly is the expert here, but is it 2 or 3 miles that we can see an actual license plate? We can see what's in their hand. So we're very blessed in the city of Chula Vista to have a very innovative group of individuals like Sergeant Varga, like Lieutenant Kelly, and many of our officers that are coming up with innovative ideas, problem solve, and to keep our community safe.
Thank you.
Chief, I got a follow-up.
Okay, then I think that gentleman up there's been waiting for that. Go right ahead. Go ahead.
Is this drone the same type of drone the Army is using? Are they specially identified?
I'm gonna let Lieutenant Kelly, who's an expert, because I might make a mistake, but I think that's a no, but I'll,
The products that we use are from DJI, a very well-known international distributor of drones, and the government does not use them for their association with the country in China, but we do. All of our footage and all of our usage, most of it sees the inside of a courthouse, so we do use the Matrice 200 series for all of you that know drones. That's the particular one that we're using on a daily basis with the Z30 power zoom camera. So does that answer your question, sir?
No, sir. Because one time, it was an evening, there was a drone on the top of the street. And I thought, who the hell is flying this drone? You know,
Wasn't us.
if I got a screenshot, I'm like.
well, you have to understand right now,
So
drones
that's why I asked you.
drones are
there's a
being
special
utilized.
identification for the.
Well, it says police on the side of ours, but there's a lot of real estate companies, for instance, that use drones to go film the whole property as they showcase a house. So people in the community are using drones. And I anticipate as we continue that there'll be many more for food delivery, for different things. So we're kind of in the beginning stages of a new technology that a lot of people are very interested in. And if you're concerned or if there's an issue or whatever, you can always call the police department.
I'm sorry, sir.
Is there a difference in response time from a phone call and like an emergency alarm button that would be at?
Like a panic alarm
like
button?
a panic alarm button?
It depends. If you're calling from a cell phone, sometimes it'll route you, like for in our area, if you call from a cell phone, it first routes you to California Highway Patrol.
Okay.
And then they route you to us.
Okay.
So in that instance, it might be. If you're calling from a landline, then it routes to us, but we have upgraded. I knew the captain was gonna, go ahead, Captain.
Just to clarify, they did change the cell phone system. Sergeant Varga does a great job with investigation. I just came out of the comm center, managing the comm center, and they did upgrade the comm center systems throughout the state. So now, actually, if you are within the city limits of Chula Vista, for example, and you call 911 on your cell phone, it used to be back in the day, it would first go to the Highway Patrol because that's what they figured who had cell phones or people in the roads. But now it actually goes to your local jurisdiction. So if you're in the city of Chula Vista, you're going to reach our 911 center first. So it's a lot quicker.
And Cameron, is it correct that we are working, we now have text capabilities or soon to have text capabilities?
Very soon to have. That's right.
So is it emergency better?
So now you can go ahead and call directly into us and it'll get here quicker. You'll now soon be able to text as well. So if you're in that hiding position and you want to get information to us, you no longer have to voice, you can now soon text us.
So are the emergency buttons?
So when you say emergency button,
Like the alarm system, the alarm company.
Oh, you
sell
don't
you like the panic buttons.
Okay, the panic buttons. Those are dispatched to the security center first of a private company, and then they come to us. So it actually could be slower, depending upon what
They
that
have to
private
verify,
company.
So on those panic alarms, sometimes we have a lot of challenges because people will just utilize those, and that's not the best way to reach the police department. The best way is to dial 911, and that way you're connected enacted when you go to a panic alarm, it has to be verified through the alarm company.
Follow up on the 911 system. If you are on the I-5 on Palomar, are they going to be fighting each other like CHP Chula Vista, or does the system know if you're on the freeway?
The system knows it by jurisdiction, so if you're on the freeway passing through the city of Chula Vista, it will route it to us, to the Chula Vista Police Department first. However, all dispatchers are trained the same basic methodology for the initial seconds of the call. And one of the first questions they're going to ask is, where is it? Where is what's going on? Because if they determine that, oh, this is on the freeway, what is it? Oh, it's a crash? Let me send you the highway patrol. Oh, it's on the freeway, but it's something police related? Give me more information so I can send police officers.
Yeah, before we were routed right to CHP and then took a minute.
That's right. Go ahead, sir.
And then before the text message system comes in an active shooter scenario, and you want us to fight, you call 911, and you don't want to say anything. Is there anything that you can do?
You can leave your line open, right? And I'll let the captain comment on that if there's triangulation or.
Yeah, absolutely. Call 911. The chief says 100%. The easiest thing to remember is call 911. 911. If it's an emergency, call 911. If you can't say anything and you can just leave the line open, that's going to be an incredible amount of information that they can glean just from being able to listen. And the phone will send us your GPS location, a pretty close approximation, and it's getting better. Actually, the state's upgrading the system right now. So coming up in the next year, it's going to be really precise, actually, to even a point within a building. So some really good stuff happening on the technological realm, but that's an absolutely great solution. If you don't feel safe saying anything, just leave the line open.
Maybe as a comms question again, a lot of our people at our church don't have the address memorized. So if someone were to call 911 and be like, such and such church, or our comm center, do they know what church, where it's at, or should we train people to memorize the address?
Yeah, sure. So the comm center has a directory of businesses and other points of interest throughout the whole city. Most medium, small, medium, and large size, we probably know, but sometimes things change. The name of a church may change hands, the name may change hands, so on and so forth, and same thing for businesses and other sorts of points of interest. So we don't always have the exact updated information. But I'd say if I had to just venture a guess, probably 90+% accurate. Certainly if you're a long-standing institution that's been there a little while, much more for sure.
So if I randomly say Gomez Barbershop, you guys know where that's at?
We very well might. We have a large list. We actually, if you have a business license.
I gotta say, it takes time for them to look that up. So if time is of the essence, if you can provide the address right away, that's gonna get them there quicker.
Yeah. And that way we don't get it wrong. But we retain the business license. If you get a business license in the city of Chula Vista, our 911 system is connected with that. So as long as it's up to date, we should have the right information. But if you ever want to be sure, especially for houses of worship and other people that run gathering places in our community, I invite you to call our non-emergency dispatch line, 619-691-5151, and just double check. We'd rather have you ask, hi, if this isn't a police emergency, but I just want to make sure you have our correct business name and address in the system.
It was amazing, Margaret. We asked our ushers and no one knew the address.
That's a good planning piece right there. That's a very important thing. So make sure all those that are in charge of the helping folks know where they're located at.
Bomb threats. Do they have any bomb threats today?
Because of technology now, we don't have as many. You'll see a lot of those in school still, where kids want to get out of a test or get out of something, so they'll call it a friend bomb threat. But because phones are so easily tracked back now or traced back, we're seeing less and less of those. In my experience, that those bomb threats have really decreased in number over the years.
I just wanted to share something. A lot of the ideas, a lot of great ideas being discussed, and one of the big concerns as people go back to their houses of worship is how we pay for this, cost. And in addition to DHS.gov, there's also FEMA.gov. People normally associate FEMA with hurricanes and natural disasters, but they also have a grant program for nonprofits and houses of worship. It's called the Nonprofit Security Grant. This year's cycle just closed out yesterday. But as part of that process, the facility does a vulnerability assessment, which looks at a lot of these concerns. And even though it closed yesterday, if you go to the FEMA website and you look up grants for houses of worship or the nonprofit security grant, you can start preparing for next year. Usually they'll roll it out around February, and then they close out the application process in May and then the awards in September. So that's just something to look at. It deals with a lot of facility stuff. I think there's even money for some training.
That's an excellent point. Thanks for sharing that.
Just, Mike, if I can just touch on an earlier question, we were kind of discussing it back here, having to do with the challenges of course, not having money, not having resources, right? Something we all struggle with and we're all very, very familiar with. And I know the earlier question about, hey, what if locking a door isn't practical? We can't hire security guards to be out there. And we were kind of talking about it in the back of the room. And I stepped out for a while with some of the media, but I may have missed this part of the presentation. But if you're not thinking about it, one of the things that my church took on to doing was basically locking all the doors except one side door. And they posted up a little sign that said, meaning they're open until service started, and then the ushers lock all the doors except one side entrance door. And they put a sign up that says, please use the side door. At the side door, we now see an usher or a greeter that actually sits in a chair right inside that door. The door is actually mostly closed, it's partially propped open. And that way, everybody comes in through one usher. Now, ideally, preparation, talk, discussion, coordination, and training would come in advance, and that person would know what to do in the event of an emergency. At the same time, we've talked to the congregation about you exiting out a different door. So that way, we really have one point of entry once we know the house is full, once we know people are, the congregation is there, and services begun. So another option to consider.
You're talking.
Go ahead in the back, in the front.
Thank you. You're talking about ushers and you're talking about volunteers within the community or the congregation. How would this play from the legal point of view to put together a group of, from the teenagers that were taking care of the kids to the adults that are having a concealed carry license? How would you build a group of volunteers that can legally operate without going illegal?
Well, so you're talking about protecting your house of worship, I'm assuming.
Yeah, like
So
if you want to put together a team of
I would
people
start
and train them.
I would
and-
start with a working group. See what ideas that you can bring together, see what experience that you can bring together. On the private side, there's all sorts of companies out there that will train you in security measures. They will come out and they will do site surveys, they will do threat assessments for you, and they will provide training for you. The training piece is a really important component, especially when we talk about somebody armed with a firearm that may potentially have to shoot through a crowd of people. I mean, that's
obviously, you don't give a gun to just anybody.
That's right.
You have
Yeah.
to train them
Yeah.
well. But
And
even
there
if
has
you
to
just
be
had one
practice.
person or two that carry the gun, but you have a lot of like the volunteer in the entrance that is just sitting there, seeing if they recognize whoever's walking in or not, or greeting people to see if they recognize them, or if they're carrying a big bag, or if they're wearing a big coat if it's 80 degrees out.
Confronting somebody is often just the best way. Like we talked about, empower your people and give your people permission to walk up to somebody and say, oh, can I help you? Or I haven't seen you here before.
But then you don't want to be sued by, oh, they just, what's it called, like racial profiling. You know what I mean? But it's like
the things that you described to me, the 80 degrees, somebody's wearing a big bulky jacket. That's not necessarily racial profiling. That's common sense stuff that you're looking at. Remember when we talked about intuition?
Yeah.
That's hey, why is this guy wearing a heavy bulky jacket in the middle of summer? Is it acceptable for you as a church member to introduce yourself and say, hi, I haven't met you.
Yeah.
My name is Mike.
Let me get that
Welcome, where are you
jacket
from? Well, you get kind of a sense of what they're doing there, right?
Yeah.
And if you really truly have a concern about them, absolutely call law enforcement. Call us. Yes, ma'am.
We're certainly not here advocating and telling people that you need to, in your houses of worship or your businesses, that you need to carry weapons. That's a personal choice for each and every person to make. We are just here to talk about strategies and about training and about what things you consider and you should think about. So, you know, I think that's a real challenging thing, whether or not either schools or church, you know, they ask us, what's your opinion? That's each person's individual choice on how they want to go about this. But we also say, if you're going to carry a weapon and go through the process of getting a CCW, there is training you have to go through, and there is a responsibility that you have to have. responsible gun ownership to us is the most important thing right now. So you make those decisions.
Is there a way that you all communicate with the houses of worship to let us know if there's a threat or something going on, or a suspicious person has, gone to 2 houses of worship now and filmed or whatever?
Absolutely. If we become aware that there is a threat out there, so we can talk about general threats and specific threats. For example, after we had Poway incident, we reached out to some of our houses of worship. This is, hey, we're here if you need anything. We're gonna do some extra patrols in the community, and we do that on a regular basis. Now, if there's a specific threat where we're aware that somebody is targeting a specific church, then we'll absolutely let you know, hey, this is the information that we have. These are some of the recommendations that we have for you to increase security or to take some steps that you would need to protect yourself in your house. Sir, and then I'm now to the back over there, I see you.
I want to segue with her. Ma'am, excuse me. When they coming in with a box, a backpack, a package, something too heavy, you got the right to ask them if you're on staff, can I look in there? What you got in there? We don't know you, but we want you to come in here and have a good time. And if they won't let you look in it, tell them to hit the road. Because there's no telling what's in it. You're not violating their rights. That's your house.
Thank you. Question? I'm sorry, y'all can repeat that. Walking out.
So you said before, there's an active shooter in Chula Vista that National City Police and tons of other forces are coming in. Is that true for Bonita also?
That's correct. So the question is, if the active shooter alert goes out to law enforcement, is it just Chula Vista or is it countywide where multiple resources are going to come? It's countywide. So we've responded to threat situations as far as this one. So it is countywide. We put out active shooter, the whole world. Saw some more hands up. Ma'am?
Earlier, you talked about entertainment venues, so I
Yes.
assume the amphitheater.
Correct.
That you have police there when there's a concert or something like that. Is that something you work with the promoter? Or is that you just look and see when there's concerts?
So I think we actually have a representative here from the venue. We do work very closely with the venue. We have, depending upon how big the concert is, that's how we staff it. So we have X amount of sworn personnel for X thousand number of people that attend the concert. And there are some specific artists who require extra security, or who request extra security, and then they pay for extra security. Yes. You have another question, sir?
What would be the first step if you had a small business where you'd like to get a threat assessment or have someone come by and look at it and give us ideas of how to start?
Give me a call. We often can't go everywhere, but at least we can talk you through some things. Take a look at some of the resources on here that'll kind of trigger some ideas. It'll actually walk you through a site assessment. So, okay, where should we have cameras? What is our access control? How can we improve our access control? Where do we have barricades? What's our notification system? All those different things that we talked about today, it'll help walk you through that.
This is in San Diego, though.
Yep. Oh, you can call San Diego, and I don't know who's specifically there, but I know they have a community relations department that does Dept, which is kind of like the environmental design and review. Okay. Perfect. Yes, sir.
We sign up for threat notifications.
Through our website, yeah, we put those out. We don't send out unless your specific house or your business is targeted. We don't just send out general alerts. There is specific times we use Nixle, which is almost like a reverse 911 system, where we will shoot out certain information. There's nothing that you have to necessarily sign up for.
Based on your cell phone location, or is it where you're home?
Based on home. But there's also social media now that we use to put out notifications on.
If I can just touch on that as well. If you're interested, so the reverse 911 system is based on homes and houses. It also does businesses and register business phone numbers, but it actually can do a lot more. If you go to readysd.org, or if you just Google search Ready San Diego, you can also register, for example, your cell phone number, locations. You can even register your kids' locations, for example, if they go to a particular school. So that way, if there's an event happening near that school, normally reverse 911 wouldn't call that number, but in this case, it might know how to do that if you register. It's totally voluntary, it's up to each individual, but the San Diego Office of Emergency Services offers that service and it applies throughout the whole county.
So I have a follow-up with that question. Here in the United States, we've mainly seen a shooter going to just one location. New Zealand, 2 different mosques. So would the reverse 911 work in our community if a shooter went to one, what happens in the school? If there's a shooter happening in the school, do they warn the schools in the area, hey, lockdown, there's a possibility? Are we at that stage yet? And would Ready San Diego be the place to register? So if somebody else's church is being hit on Sunday morning, we could then say, okay, we need to be ready because they might come by.
So Ready San Diego isn't necessarily going to alert you if you're at one location, maybe 10, 20 miles away from another location where an active emergency event is occurring.
Okay.
It's not there. But that being said, Sergeant Vargas alluded to it a couple of times, whether you know it or not, from a public safety standpoint, you all reside and work in this area, this region of San Diego, which is on the absolute forefront across the entire country in terms of partnerships and working together. That's why, as Sergeant Vargas said, when we have an active incident here, we actually sometimes respond with so many resources from so many different areas of this county, we create our own problems. We can't even get our cars out of the street.
Yeah.
There's so many other cars there, police cars. So that's a good problem to have. So while we're not, Ready San Diego won't necessarily automatically alert other resources. A perfect example is you asked about our schools. And our school districts work very cooperatively with all the public safety partners, including and especially Chula Vista. And when we have an event or a potential threat that exists at a particular school, our officers are in direct communication with a variety of district officials. They all have their cell phone numbers, and our officers respond to nearby locations that could potentially also be at risk based on this as a matter of routine. So not systematically, meaning the computer system doesn't do it, but we think that way as an entity in this region. Thank you.
How can we get a copy of your PowerPoint presentation?
Did you sign up on the email outside the email? I will send you an email, and then I'll ask for emails back for those that want to.
So I think it's a good time to transition, and I hope that you all have had an opportunity to take some of this information back, share it with those in the community, the houses of worship. We want your emails we have now. We want to start the line of communication and make sure that we continue to share and we work together. This is all about, as I said before, truly, we really do care about our community. We want to have closer relationships, and we want to work on strategies to keep Chula Vista one of the safest communities in the state of California, and especially in the city of San Diego. So we have a lot to be proud of in San Diego County. This is a safe region, but if it can happen in Poway, it can happen anywhere. And I just want to give a round of applause to Sergeant Varga, who's amazing. I think this is a great showing, and we want to continue this conversation.
Thank you.